The 2025 real estate market across Southern Ontario has basically failed to start this year. Right here in Brantford, demand from January to April is actually down 14% compared to last year, which was already a slow year. It's down 47% compared to 2021, but not so fast. Conditions are changing very quickly. May was the most active month in over a year, and it really feels like the market is finally waking up. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's going on right now, June 2025, here in the Brantford real estate market. Now, if you only watch even half of this video, you will be the most educated person you bump into about the real estate market. You'll probably even know more than half the real estate agents in this market. The information in this video is extremely valuable, especially if you're planning to make a buy or sell this year. But this information is also valuable if you're just a homeowner here in Brantford, not thinking of moving at all, but just wondering what's going on with the value of your home. Stick with me all the way to the end of the video because I'm going to give you very specific advice if you are planning a transaction. Whether you're buying or selling, whether the market's hot or cold, I've got the dialed in strategy that's going to work for you. So, the biggest headline in the real estate market right now is that demand is way down this year from where it normally is. Only 503 home sales have happened between January and the end of May this year, and that's significantly down from previous years. I can add this dotted line to the chart that shows that effect. It's actually the slowest start to the real estate market in a decade. It's 14% slower than last year and a whopping 47% slower than that high bar you see there in 2021. Now, the slow start to the real estate market is kind of old news if you've been watching my videos. We've been talking about it since January. I want to tell you what's happening right now. And the thing that stands out is just how busy May was. May spiked with 138 sales, making it the highest demand month in over a year. That's up 34% from April. So this year started off slow for a bunch of reasons we don't really need to get into because it's ancient history at this point. We're looking at what's happening right now and projecting into the future, and May is the start of our real estate market this year. The demand has been building throughout the month of May, so I actually expect June to come off even busier. And what you want to think of is that the spring market is shifted from earlier in the spring to later in the spring and running into the summer this year. So, in case you're new here and this is your first time watching one of my videos, my name is Jeff Thibodeau and I'm a real estate broker here in my hometown of Brantford, Ontario. I've been helping people just like you make smart real estate decisions for over 16 years. If you have any questions at all, or if you're ready to start working together, all you need to do is reach out. I'm always taking on new clients and I'm happy to take your questions. All my contact information is right in the video description below. So we talked about how demand was up in May after starting slow this year. Well, here's the chart that shows the number of new homes coming on the market every month. The supply is way up too, which is normal in a spring market. But I want to tell you, looking at this chart is kind of useless data. There's a wild behavior on the MLS right now where many sellers, up to 30–40% of these listings, are actually listings that already have been for sale. They were taken down and relisted. And the way the system works is it counts it as a new listing every single time. So I like to just throw this chart out. The better one to look at, the more honest number, is the actual inventory levels every month. You can see here how inventory peaked last year in October, and then it fell into December, which is very normal for a lot of homes to come off the market into the winter. Now, since December, the inventory has been climbing month after month, and we've been watching and waiting to see if we hit a new high point this year or inventory levels started coming down. Well, we reached a new high point in May with an average of 451 homes on the market. That peaks last October where it was 447, but not by much. So what we're really watching here for the rest of the year is for inventory to level off. If it keeps racing away, we could spend the rest of the year in a cooler buyer's market. But if the demand stays the way it was in May for the next couple months, the inventory could start coming down and we could actually see the market shift back towards the sellers. Now, this chart shows the demand levels in red overlaid on the actual inventory levels. And you can see there are still a lot more homes for sale than are selling every month, but we're going to get all into that in the market segment breakdown, so stay tuned. But just for context, let's look back over the last 10 years of inventory levels. And this shows the inventory level every month, and you can see some interesting trends. You can definitely see the ups and downs of every year where we have a peak inventory level, usually in the spring, summer, and then it falls to a low point in the winter. Now, you can look at this two ways. We can look and track the high points every year, or we can look and track the low points every year. I like to do both. And what you can see is since the market started cooling down. The peak inventory levels have risen every year, both the high points and the low points. The real thing we want to see this year is for the market to turn around and the peak inventory levels come down. So even if they get a little higher than they are right now, what I'm watching for is later on this year, I want to see the winter inventory levels fall to levels lower than they were last year. That would be a really strong indicator that 2026 is going to be a much stronger year. Let's talk about what's happening with home prices here in Brantford. This chart shows the median price for homes, both detached homes in red, townhomes in blue, and condos in gray. And this is showing that actually for about the last 19 months on this chart, prices are pretty stable. You see the wild ramp up earlier in the chart. You see that sharp decline in 2022. But basically, since then, the market's kind of found its stable position and it hasn't really been affected by all the different things that have gone on through 2023, 2024, and now 2025. That tells me that the market has really kind of found its bottom, and we really shouldn't expect prices to fall much more from here. I can tell you out in the field too, there's not a lot of desperate sellers. Most sellers are being quite stubborn with their asking price and willing to just wait for another month. There's only a small percentage of sellers who really need to get it sold and willing to sell at a discount. So that's preventing homes from falling too much further. The much more likely scenario is that the market starts to turn around and we start to see a little bit more appreciation in the market as we move forward through the remainder of this year, 2026, and beyond. Now, if you've ever looked at these charts with me, you realize I don't really like averages. They're fun and you can track things with them, but really it washes out what's actually going on in the data because an average just tries to summarize a whole market down to one single number, and that's not how it works. This chart instead, each dot represents a property that's sold in May. The red ones again are detached homes, the blue ones townhomes, and the gray dots are condos. And along the bottom, we're tracking the price. And then up the vertical axis, we actually have the number of days on market it took to sell. And you can see it's ranging all the way up to almost a year on market here. It's very clear to see that the majority of the sales are clumped here between $400,000 and $800,000 and homes being sold in under 30 days. When you look outside of the area that I've circled, you can see there's far fewer dots and they're much more spread out. So this is the hot active part of the market, and we're going to get into it a little bit later in the video. Just to look at this data a different way, instead of looking at the time on market, now I've replaced the vertical axis with the strength of the offer. So a full price offer is there, the bold line in the middle. Anything above that white line is a property that's sold over its asking price. And below that line are properties that sold below their asking price. And this is another interesting thing when you think the market is slow, but we have just so many red dots still going into bidding wars right through the price ranges, all the way from 400 pretty much up to like the mid sevens. We're seeing this hot, bidding war activity on new detached listings. The other things I'm seeing here is that the biggest chunk of the dots is all circled right below the 100% line. So most of our sales are happening just for a slight discount off of asking price, somewhere between 1 to 4%. And the last thing I notice here on this chart, there are very few properties selling at a deep discount. From a high level, what it's important to understand is there's actually two distinct markets happening at once. Some homes are selling very quickly with multiple buyers wanting them, while other homes are sitting on the market forever and eventually selling for discounts. Really understanding that both of these things are happening at the same time, that's the key to really understanding the market. The market is not just one thing, we can't just label it with one headline. So let's break down some of the segments. Now, just before we get into that, I hope you're getting some value for this video. If you are, do me a favor and just hit that like button. It helps the video get pushed out to more people just like you, and it's a way of saying thanks to me. Also, if you like videos like this, you're interested in the Brantford real estate market, hit that subscribe button. That ensures that each time I publish a new video, it lands right on your home screen. Second, I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you that actually reached out last month with your questions. And also a few of you, we've already started working together. And remember, if you're watching and have any questions at all about the real estate market or what you're thinking about your potential next move, all my contact information is right below. No questions too small. I'd love to talk with you. Okay, let's zoom in and look at the detached home market. Detached home prices have had a wild ride over the last few years. Pre-pandemic, we already had about 5 years behind us of double-digit appreciation. But then 2021 and early 2022 saw a buying frenzy and prices peaked all the way up at $830,000 for the median house. Then as we saw that interest rate shift hit, it immediately collapsed that hype. And the pricing fell all the way to 585 as some sellers got caught needing to desperately sell their home when buyers were basically on pause. Now, since then, you can see that things have recovered and stabilized. Basically, anyone who purchased their home prior to 2021 is sitting on quite a bit of equity. And if you've purchased it in the last couple years, things have been a little calmer, but your home still may be up slightly in value. Now, looking at just the time to sell across the detached homes, right now, this chart going all the way up to 360 days kind of squishes down all the data here. So what I want to do is zoom in. I'm only going to run this chart up to 90 days now so we can really zoom in on the bottom on what's really happening with the fresh new listings. And you can see here where I've circled that actually most of the action is not even just under 30 days, it's under 15 days. Now, a 15-day sale is very fast in real estate. That means they either got a conditionless offer in the first 2 weeks on market, or they received an offer and all the conditions were already done and cleared within 2 weeks. So that means they probably got an offer within the first 7 to 10 days. Now that's a fast moving market, and it is really centered again around that 400 to $800,000 price range. Another thing I notice on this is on the right side of the chart, as we start getting up past $800,000, there are just very few red dots. The over $800,000 market right now is completely stalled out, and we're going to get into that in a little bit later. Now, if I look at the asking prices again in the detached market, I'm going to zoom in again. So we're just looking kind of 10% above and below because you can see there's not really a lot of dots above 10% over asking or 10% under asking. So let's zoom in, and I can see really three distinct things here. First thing is the middle circle, right? Most detached sales are happening between 100% and 97%. That's like the whole middle of the market is getting maximum like 3% off the asking price. Now, there's a large group of properties above, and you can see they're scattered everywhere because generally what happens is people pick kind of like the next lowest 99 price, either 649 or 899 or whatever, right? And then the prices get bid up. So that's why you see the different offers because they're all kind of artificially starting at these marketing prices. But I also want you to show you down here below there's a small group at the very bottom, and they tend to be the more affordable homes that are actually taking bigger discounts. So this is a good signal for first-time home buyers looking to get in the market. There's actually a lot of deals happening on the more affordable side of the market. You can stay out of these bidding wars, and you can actually hunt down a deal. Now, it's one thing to look at charts, but I also want to start showing you some properties. So here's an example of a median-priced home. This home just sold in the higher 600s. It was only 900 square feet on the main level. It did have a fully finished lower level. It does have a detached garage tucked back there behind the house. It's down in Eagle Place and it's in A plus condition. I think this is a fantastic example of what an average home looks like here in Brantford. Now, you can get a variety of different homes at this price point. Just to show you, here's another average home. This one was 1,200 square feet. Again, sold for the high 600s. It had a great lower level, it had a pool, and it was in A plus condition in the very popular neighborhood of West Brant. These are both high quality, nice homes that buyers snagged for under $700,000. Now, maybe you're at the entry price point. This one actually surprised me. Someone got a fantastic deal here. This home sold in the low 300s. Now, yes, it was in pretty rough condition. It was in the downtown area, but with a little bit of work, this home is going to see a big equity bump with a little elbow grease and some renovations. So, somebody trying to get into the housing market for the low 300s who has some skills or is willing to upgrade this home is actually going to do very well. And I think they're going to be happy they snagged this deal. And just to show you what's going on the other far end of the spectrum, Brantford has some really spectacular estate homes if you have a couple $1 million in the bank to spend on real estate. This place just sold for slightly under 2.4 million in the Grand Valley Estates neighborhood. These homes are very highly desirable, nice, huge lots, wonderful architecture. Most people have these spa-like resort backyards going on. And to get this home here in Brantford for this price, I want you just to go see what it would cost you to get a 6,159 square foot, fully done estate home just an hour closer to Toronto. That'll blow your mind. Let's take a similar look at the townhome market. Now, the number of townhomes and condos is much smaller in Brantford than detached homes. We really are like an 80% detached home community, but these other products are starting to become more and more popular, especially it's the new product that builders are building more of. So we have to keep an eye on it because Townhomes and condos really are going to be the future of a lot of the new construction that comes down the pipeline. So the townhome market really followed the same pattern as the detached market. It peaked back at 743 and it fell rapidly back to 500K as people had to unload some properties. But right now, things feel really stable around the $600,000 mark. When we look at the action on what's actually selling in the townhome market, it's not as frenzied as the detached home market. You can see that some homes near the bottom of the chart here are selling fairly quickly, but others are taking quite a long time to get their offers. And similarly, we see that in the townhome market, not a lot of bidding wars happening. Most townhomes are actually selling for slightly below their asking price, and even some are getting quite a discount. Some buyers are picking up really good deals. Let's take a look. Here is what you can expect for an average price townhome. This one sold for just over $600,000. It was 1,500 square feet, basically brand new in a newer build area. And this is actually cheaper than you could rebuy this from a builder today. So I think the new buyer of this home is going to be quite happy when they look back in a couple years. Well, now this one's up in the north end, which makes it in a very desirable neighborhood. And this was the most affordable townhome to sell last month. Sold for just over $400,000 in an A plus neighborhood. And what you can't tell is the inside is like 10x nicer than the outside of this building. Obviously, it was on the market for a little while with the snowy pics, but eventually it found a buyer. And I think they're going to be very happy they bought here. On the other side, there are a few townhome developments here in Brantford that cater to the higher end luxury buyer. People with a little more money, for whatever reason, don't want a detached house. They actually prefer a townhome. It's not necessarily about getting less, it's about a different lifestyle. And so this is one of those buildings. It's in the Dufferin area. This one was almost 3,200 square feet, had a lot of wow factor. It's got walkout basement. I think someone did really well to pick this property up. So the condo market has actually been a lot less volatile through the market swings. There are less condos and they tend to be stacked at the entry level price point. There aren't that many apartment style condos here in Brantford. There are a lot of townhome condos and there's even a few detached home condos. But the big difference between the apartment style condos is whether they're in older established buildings that have kind of been around for a while, cater to a more mature buyer who is an owner occupier, and then you've got a lot of this newer product that's been coming on the market that was catered towards investor style buyers, pre construction buyers who were either trying to flip these units for a profit or they were potentially holding on to them as rental units. These are two totally different types of condos. When we see the dots where the condos are selling, you can see actually the condo market is not really that hot at all. Very few dots in total. And a lot of them are hovering around that kind of 60 days on market. Just a few of them sold quickly. The thing that's really hiding out of these charts is the all the condos that are not selling. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. Looking again at the offer percentage on condos, this kind of makes sense. The ones that did sell quickly also got a fairly good offer because they were priced properly. And the ones that took a lot longer to sell, well, they had to take a bigger discount off their asking price. The condo market is having some struggles right now, and it may be a little rougher before it gets better. Here's an example of an average condo priced just over 400, sold last month. It's a nice established North End building. It holds its value well, and owners generally seem to like it. I've worked with some buyers who only want to watch and wait for a unit to come up in this building. Now, the entry level price point in the condo market is really the entry level price point to the real estate market. This place just sold for the mid 200s. Imagine that. You could stop renting and start building equity into something you actually own. Some people complain about condo fees, but you need to factor it all in because with a condo like this, you've got no exterior property maintained, no yard to maintain. You don't have to worry about the exterior walls, the roof, repairs and replacement of those things. That's all coming out of the condo fees. And actually, with this building, some of the major utilities are even included in your condo fee. So it's important when you're looking at that, don't just write off condos, but look at the whole cost of the condo lifestyle versus the potential cost of owning and maintaining your own home. And you might see that those things potentially balance out. Now, at the top end of the condo market, this was the highest price sale in June. It's in a building called The Landing, again in the North End, one of the newest buildings that's been completed. It is a very high luxury feel, a lot of amenities for the owners, and it's in an A plus location. So this is no surprise to me that it got one of the top selling prices and a very popular building, especially for owner occupied units. Okay, so we did a breakdown of the different styles of home, but now I want to get really specific with you. And this type of data is very important, especially if you're planning a transaction. Really understanding what type of market you're in is going to determine what strategies you use. So let me explain how this works. I made up this little chart because, again, I think explaining the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market is this key fundamental thing that once you understand it and realize, oh, these are very different market conditions and why, then you can start to formulate your strategy to win. So each different segment of the market is basically driven by the same supply demand fundamentals. We use this number of months supply to compare one segment to the other or compare a segment over time. So it's a mathematical number that basically calculates the difference between how many homes are for sale versus how many are selling. And we just divide those two numbers out and you kind of get a multiple. So take a look at the first line in this chart. I'm showing you we have one potential buyer, but six homes up for sale. So that equates to a 6 month supply. That means in every 30-day period, one of those six sellers is going to get an offer and sold, and the other five are going to be, scratching their heads. So that's a very cold, slow market. Anything, six or above, we can consider kind of an extreme buyer's market. And we go down the chart, you can see at four, at one buyer for every three houses, we kind of start to consider that a balanced market. And as I move down the chart, we get into where the market shifts very subtly. When we have about two houses for sale for every one buyer out there, that's actually a very hot, fast paced market. 2 months supply historically would be considered an aggressive seller's market. Now, the only difference being in 2021, we experienced a wild market where the month supply dipped actually below one. Now, this has never really happened before in history. So it's recalibrated what we think of as a seller's market. So I've noticed that right around 1.5 months supply, kind of between that one and two box on my chart, we call that the crazy line internally here at my team. And what that means is below 1.5 months supply in any market segment, and the buyers start feeling like they got to act crazy, right? They have to like throw these wild bidding wars in because if you go to buy a house and you lose, and you go to buy a house and you lose, you start to get really frustrated and want to win eventually. And that's what happens when the month supply is too low. So, massive difference if you have a 2 month supply versus a 4 month supply. It only looks like a tiny difference numerically, but it's a completely different market, and you need to understand what market you're in to make sure you play your game right. So let's take a look. Here's a chart. This chart shows over time the three different property types we've been talking about and how they've moved from buyers to sellers market. Now, same on this chart, the higher number, it goes all the way up to 12 here. Those are buyers markets. And at the bottom of the chart, kind of anything three and below, we'll consider that getting into a seller's market. And you can see over the last couple of years that the conditions have generally been rising overall with all the fluctuations, but you can see the trend of it rising overall. So that means the month supply has been going up. But you can see that right now, this year, the condo market has just raced away. Like it had a bad year last year, never really came down that much. And then it just took off again this year. So there's a huge oversupply of condos on the market. Conversely, if we look at the townhome and single family market, they're holding on quite well. They're still down here in the balanced or potentially even seller's market, depending on the price range. Now, we can look at this another way. Another way would be look at it by breaking apart the price ranges. And I know from working with buyers and sellers that the lower price ranges are much hotter here in Brantford and the higher price ranges are struggling. Well, the data shows that also. So the red and blue lines, those are the more affordable price points of under 600 or 600 to 800. And you can see that they're the hottest markets. They're the lowest numbers, right? Most in favor of the sellers. But as we move up the price points into that group 800 to a million, you see things are rising and they're slowing off. And also the gray line, which represents a million to 1.2 million, they're even slowing more. So definitely you have to consider at what price point you're at in the market and understand that the lower price point, whether you're buying or selling, the hotter the market is going to be. And the higher you move up the prices here in Brantford, the more the market cools off. Getting a clear picture of the real estate market that you're going to be transacting in is the first most important step of understanding how your transaction is going to go and what strategies you should deploy. Here's the thing. You or I, we don't have the power to change the market conditions, but we can understand them and then run a winning playbook for those market conditions. It doesn't matter if the market's hot or cold. It matters that you know it's hot or cold so you can apply the right playbook. Remember this, it's the most important thing when it comes to winning in the real estate market. If you take the wrong strategy into the market, you're pretty much always going to lose. Okay, you stuck around this far. I want to give you some very specific advice and tell you exactly what's going on in each of the different real estate markets. In the detached market, consider basically all homes under $800,000 are currently hot sellers markets, especially if it's a single story home. They have the widest buyer pool and they're getting the most attention and most premium pricing. Now, on the flip side, I see the biggest opportunity for buyers just slightly out of that range, up in the 800 to 1.2 million. There is tons of homes available, especially newer construction homes. There are really deals to be had everywhere if that is your budget. And I've actually had a couple clients reach out to me in the last little while that understood what I was explaining here. And they see that if you own a home in the hot sellers market, so if you own a home that's going to sell for under 800, and you see this as your opportunity to move up into a bigger, nicer home, 800 to 1.2, you have the opportunity to be in the advantage on both sides. You're going to sell in a seller's market and buy in a buyer's market. And that's not always possible, but it is right now. Here's an example of a home that's sold in the hot market segment. So this one was in the north end. It actually sold in a bidding war almost right away, 1,675 square feet, got the mid 700s by the winning buyer who paid over asking. And actually, I still think the buyer got a pretty good deal when you look at some of the other recent sales in this neighborhood. So here we have it, a happy seller who got multiple bids and got the job done. And I think the buyer's going to still be pretty happy that they bought this home. That's the kind of results you can expect if you're in a hot market. Now, conversely, this home was in a cold market, just slightly higher price, right? It was asking kind of the higher 800s when it first listed. And eventually it took 294 days before it got an offer. It's a nice big house. It's worth this price. But the market's just a little slower up at these price points. So you can see how it's so much different for a home that sold in the low 800s versus a home that sold in the mid 700s. So the conditions are a little different in the townhome market. And let me explain. The hot segment is actually the middle of the price range, especially those ones without condo fees. So townhomes priced between $600 and $700,000 that are freehold, those are the hottest segment of the market. And that tends to be because that's the product that people want. Those are usually 1,500, 1,800 square feet, single car garage, 2-story, 3 bed, 2 bath, right? These are desirable products for a wide variety of buyers. Now, there's a couple opportunity segments. Number one, older townhomes, right? They're not as pretty on the inside or the out, so they're getting a little less attention. But this could be your opportunity to get something at an entry price point. Also, condo fees that come along with townhomes, even if they're small, are hurting the sales just a little bit. Because, especially for first time home buyers, when you qualify for your mortgage, if that property has a condo fee, they take that condo fee right off your qualification. So buying into a condo actually brings down the amount of affordability the average buyer has. So it's just slowing the sales of townhouse condos a little bit. And the third segment of the market is a newer product to Brantford, these higher density townhomes. You might see them stacked on top of each other. Perhaps they're 3 stories. They could be back to back. So you actually don't have a backyard. You've got another townhome behind you. These products are this new push for more density that was exciting when the real estate market was booming. But now that it's cooled off a bit, the general buyer in Brantford wants more space, not less space. That's why they came here. It's a more affordable community. So these, kind of micro townhomes or more densely packed townhomes, they're having trouble finding new buyers right now when you have other options available to you in the six to $700,000 range. Here's an example of a townhome that sold hot and quick. This is another one of those higher end luxury catered townhome subdivisions. It's in the north end. I know some people wait for these to come up for sale, right? They see it's going to be kind of their downsize, their retirement home. They're going to cash out from their house and buy one of these. A lot of mature adults, professionals in this complex. Just about 1,800 square feet, slightly under 800 grand, and it was sold in 5 days. That's pretty good. I think the seller's happy with that. Now, on the other end, some buyer is going to be really happy with this deal. This is, again, almost the same size as that one I just showed you, but it's down in West Brant, very family-friendly neighborhood, highly desirable. But for whatever reason, it wasn't moving. And this buyer got this place for just over $600,000, no condo fees. This is literally, 10, 20% cheaper than if you went and asked the builder to build this for you today. So I think that's the townhome deal of the month. And finally, let's take a look inside the condo market. Here's the thing. Basically, all condos are a buyer's market right now. But let's take a look at some of the biggest deals available. I want to highlight some of these buildings for you. What we have to understand with condos versus detached homes is typically in a condo building, many units are very, very similar. So if you put your home up for sale and then your neighbor 2 floors up also puts their home up for sale, pretty much whoever offers the best deal to the buyers is going to sell first. And then multiply that by maybe 7 or 8 units up for sale in the building. And you realize whoever's selling for the best value is going to be the one that sells. So there's great deals to be had in some of these buildings if you're ready to get into the condo lifestyle. Let me show you. Here we go. 7 Erie Ave. This is down south of downtown. It's got commercial on the lower level. There's actually another tower being built beside it. There's supposed to be three total. There is longer term plans for this whole area to be much more dense and lots more construction to be happening. So you're kind of getting in early. That would be my advice. If you want to pick up, one of these units, don't be thinking you're going to speculate and make a huge profit in just 1 year, but you could be getting in on the ground level, buying one of these for anywhere from 335 to 480 if you're willing to hang on to it and watch this area grow. 6 different units available right now, so you have a ton of negotiating power as the buyer. Here's another building. I actually really like this building. It's an old industrial conversion in a fantastic area of Homedale, surrounded by historic homes and great walkable neighborhood and the river. Right now, there's 8 separate units for sale in this building. You could buy into this building for somewhere between 420 and 490. You probably negotiate a little bit better deal than that. All you got to do is pit the two sellers against each other, take your pick, and put up a strong negotiation. This building in West Brant just completed and it has lots of inventory from investors looking to get out, right? Right now, there's actually 7 units for sale. There's a ton of them for rent. We might see more coming online throughout the year. I actually think this is a pretty cool building. It looks nice when you drive by it in person, but we'll see how it plays out from a financial side. Just know if you are interested in this building, you probably have a lot of negotiating power this year, as there are many people who bought it pre construction who now want to get out of that. They didn't want to close on it, they don't want to be landlords. They were just buying it as an investment and the market shift. So it could be your opportunity to hop in here. This is a building in the north end. It's not as sexy on the outside as some of this new construction that's going on, but it's really nice on the inside. I've toured a bunch of these units, and some of the penthouses have fantastic balconies. It's also situated right in the north end, probably the most convenient location in the city as far as having access to everything. Right now, there's 5 different units for sale, which is rare. I've had past years where we haven't seen a single unit come up for sale in this building. But whatever's going on right now, a bunch of people want to sell, and that is your opportunity as a buyer. There's units ranging from 370 to 490. Some of them have underground parking. This has a nice feel when you walk in the lobby, and a lot of owner occupied units too. So you've got a really nice condo building if you want something in the north end. Hey, a quick bonus, right? I know we don't gear this video towards investors generally, but I wanted to show you what's going on with the multifamily market because multifamily living is becoming more and more of an option for a lot of buyers. To be able to buy a unit where another one is being rented and helping you with your mortgage can help you qualify and also can help with your cash flow lifestyle. Right now, there's a huge opportunity in the multifamily market. It is completely ice cold, right? Right now, there are 26 duplexes, 12 triplexes, and 15 fourplexes all on the market, and only one sale in the last 30 days. So if you're a buyer ready to make a move on a multifamily home, know that you'll have the chance to pick through all of these options, run the numbers on all of them, check the tenants at every property, and pick your number one opportunity to go put in your portfolio. This was actually the only sale in the last 30 days. On the outside and financially, it doesn't look like anything too special. The buyer must have liked it for some specific reason. But if you wanted to pick up some rental properties, it is really deal hunting season out there right now. Okay, thank you very much for sticking along this far. I promised you some very tactical advice, and now we're going to get into it. What you have to realize is there's only really 4 main situations you're going to find yourself in a real estate transaction. You're going to either be buying or you're going to be selling. And then you're either going to be doing that in a hot market or a cold market. So that's all we have to determine. Now, you might be doing both. You might be buying and selling. So we got to look at each market independently. But I'm going to give you advice on all 4 of these situations. If you find yourself a buyer right now in the hot market, you're looking for a home between $400,000 and $800,000 in Brantford, you're going to find yourself in competition and it could be frustrating. So here's the thing. The truth is, the best deals go to the best prepared buyers. That means having your mortgage approval, being on auto search accounts, going out and looking at homes quickly, and then acting quickly if you want to make an offer. Don't sleep on it, throw that offer in. Now, know if you do get in competition, having fewer conditions, as many as you're comfortable with, a higher price, and obviously being flexible over things like moving date and inclusions are all going to be things that help you win if you find yourself going up against other buyers. Now, on the flip side, if you're lucky enough to be buying in a cold market, well, congratulations. A lot of people will stay on the sidelines when the market's cold, but this is actually when maximum opportunity happens. The thing you need to realize though is most sellers out there, they're not as desperate as you think. Right? People have their homes up for sale, but as long as they're not getting an offer, they just keep going to bed in it every night. There's only a very small percentage of sellers that really need to get a deal or something else is going to happen in their life. So to find them, you need to go deal hunting and look for seller motivation. You can ask questions like, why are you moving? How long is this home on the market? Have there been any price reductions? Or you can have a trusted real estate agent that's asking all those questions on your behalf and letting you know. So you need to be patient and take your time and shop and dig and hunt. But then, listen up. When you find a deal you think other people have overlooked, you need to act on it. There's nothing worse in real estate than finding a home you love, thinking it's a really good deal, going to bed and waking up and finding someone else put an offering on. Early bird gets the worm, so don't sleep on making that offer. Flipping over to selling, if you're lucky enough to be selling in a hot market, this is great, right? You actually have a chance to get a premium for your property, but don't let that make you lazy. We actually have to work harder. This isn't 2021. You're not guaranteed to have a lineup of buyers. We have to present a compelling package to the buyers that creates urgency. And that's what generates multiple offers. If you want a bidding war on your home, you need multiple people interested in it at the same time, not just one interested person this week and one interested person 2 weeks from now. So there's a very specific playbook we pull off to try to drive all the interest at once and get those buyers competing against each other. But remember, you're not going to be expecting 2021 pricing. Just because the market's hot doesn't mean people are paying 100 grand more than a house is worth. So we still need to nail that asking price, nail our marketing, and nail our house presentation, and then bam, you'll be celebrating with a sold sign. Now, the main problem a lot of clients are having is they are selling in a cold market. The thing to remember is that your competition is all the other sellers. Most of them in a cold market are not going to get an offer every month. So we have to study the competition, the people that are currently for sale and not winning before we enter the marketplace. Because if we're not willing to offer a more compelling package than some of our neighbors, then we're just adding to the inventory or helping somebody else sell. You want some real advice? If you find yourself as a seller in a cold market, really consider if now is the right time to move. You might want to just hit the pause button and wait for market conditions to improve. If you're not ready to deal with the reality of, you may have to accept a lower price, it may take a little longer, and you may have to make more concessions to get your home sold. Remember, it's not the buyers we have to worry about. It's the fact that half of your neighbors also want to sell their home too. So we got to look at that as our main mission is we need to beat the other listings. And if you do that, you still sell. Homes are selling in a colder market. There's just more homes for sale than there are buyers. Hope that makes sense. Wow, this might have been one of the longest videos I made in a long time, but I really wanted it to be useful for you and loaded with information. If you feel like this right now is your time to take advantage of one of these market conditions, or you've just got something going on in your life and you need to move and you don't really care about the market conditions, you just want to move, that's what I'm here to help with. The most important thing is you have the right information to make a smart decision over your home that's worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope to see you next week and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. I look forward to hearing from you.